Hello, and welcome. Welcome on into the Swear Word. I'm your host, Brandon Swear, and hey, this is a podcast for the chilihead community, by the chilihead community. Regardless of your spice tolerance, this is the place for you. Man, we have an amazing episode here tonight. Are you ever curious about what to do with your waste? You know, we got plants outside at the end of the year. How are you going to break it down? How can you do this? And, to keep on theme with last time, how are you going to do this on a budget? Well, we have one sauce on Hot or Not, and we're going to dive into that topic here about what we can do to maximize the use of our waste. Episode 85 starts now. Welcome on in, Swear Nation. So glad to have everyone here, whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, or Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much for being here and making the show what it is. Continue to share this out with other like-minded chili heads and continue to grow the overall community. But hey, we have, as I had mentioned before, one sauce on deck for Hot or Not. I cannot wait to dive into it. It is another one that has been generously shared with me. Not readily open to the public, but looking forward to diving into it nonetheless. As well as, we are going to talk tonight about, some different methods. We're only going to touch on potentially two total methods here tonight that are going to be talking about how you can maximize and utilize the waste that you're already getting from gardening, or if you haven't started, how you can maximize clearing out the spot where you are going to grow and use that towards maximizing your yield, maximizing the size and health of your crops. Let's go ahead and jump on over to Hot or Not. All right, welcome on into Hot or Not. Hey, if this is your first time checking out the podcast and you're trying to figure things out, I do things a bit different here. I do not do a 1 out of 10 scale. I do a 1 out of 5. That's really broken down based off of 5 different categories: heat, aroma, flavor, versatility, and burn. From there, add those up, average them out. That gives us our total swear word rating. So that's the typical flow and format. The other thing is I don't like to read the ingredients ahead of time. I like to let my taste buds do the exploration and really, fine tune and hone in my own tasting abilities before reading those ingredients, because I don't want that to sway me in any which way on what I am tasting. But don't have to worry about that tonight. Tonight's sauce that we have on deck is actually from Evil Wonka himself. So this is birria sauce. This is a hot sauce that I'm going to go ahead and assume that it's, meant for everything birria, whether you're going to make quesadillas, tacos, grilled cheese sandwiches, you name it. This is probably going to be a very ideal lineup for that. So going to be diving into that. There's no ingredients on the side of this, so don't have to worry about, really having that happen, really knowing what's in there, as well as I will not be rolling out an official scorecard on this, just simply because it is not one that everyone can get their hands on. It's not commercially available. So was, honored to receive this and wanted to dive into it. But let's go ahead and get it opened up here, give it a good shake before I get into this, and take a look. No cellophane, easy tear into. Doesn't bother me. I enjoy using my knife. So get that opened up here, and we will get into this here sauce. So on the side, it does say triple X hot. Stay saucy, my friends. So liking the overall labeling on this. I like the fun, the play to everything. Oh my goodness. Absolutely amazing. Right off the bat, very smoky, smelling much of the pepper notes right off the bat. Smells like maybe a little bit of onion, some garlic. Is that cumin? It smells like there's another spice in here that I'm picking up. It smells familiar, but I don't quite know it off of the aroma itself. Great color on this, dark red. You do see some pepper bits, some flakes, some seeds, I'm liking this. Let's get a good pour going here. As always, a healthy tablespoon is the only way to go. Just a little bit more, and there we go. All right. Body is about the same. This, I can already tell you, is going to be piping hot. The Superhots that I'm smelling on this are very prevalent, but there's also like a smoky undertone, so there's got to be other peppers than just Superhots in this. Wow. Boom, straight back to the throat. Dang, that is tasty. Wow. Wow. Let's talk through that one right off the bat. The heat as it comes in absolutely lashes out, hits the full mouth, and then, I don't know, that was maybe like 5 to 10 seconds in, just complete punch to the back of the throat. Latches in good there, really hones in, starts to hit the lower portion of the throat good, and I can just feel this one. It's as if someone just ramping up that heat. If this was a propane tank grill and you started up that, this would be the the difference between having it on low versus cranking it up on high. That flame is hitting hard. Absolutely amazing. And all that to say, you do not miss out on this great body on the sauce. The smell definitely came through with what I was thinking, but now I can definitely start to pinpoint some of those other spices that I was kind of picking up on. Yeah, there's while that cumin's there, I can definitely taste that. There's got to be some kind of like herbs going on in this, because there's kind of that herby vibe as well, and maybe a little bit of cinnamon just based on the zing that is that undernote of a spice that's coming through. It's very refreshing, and it reminds me a lot of how I end up making my mushroom coffees in the morning. I always like to sprinkle in some cinnamon. That taste that I'm getting is definitely indicative of cinnamon. So absolutely amazing. There's also got to be, like I said, some garlic. I could smell that just ever so slightly on the aroma. I can definitely taste it here. Possibly some onion. But yeah, the peppers, I mean, absolutely can tell they're Superhots in the way that it hit immediately. There's got to be some that are more pungent up front, as to where there's also, if I had to take a guess, there's got to be some kind of a ghost or ghost cross in this because of the way that the build starts to escalate up. It is indicative of that. But all in all, let's talk through heat and burn. You know, this is not one that I would recommend for anyone just starting out by any stretch. Not that it's readily available, but if you have this sauce in your possession and your tolerance is low, use in moderation. Absolutely amazing. Do not miss out on this one if you have it already. If you think, I'm just going to keep it on the shelf to collect, well, I understand what your thoughts are there. This one is definitely one that you're going to want to use. It is phenomenal. The pairings of all these different peppers that are in there, there has to be some dried chilies of some sort in that to get that earthy, smoky note, almost that roasted taste throughout that sauce. And then that just very violent punch of that burn. It has to have, at least primo tali, but the way that it builds, there's got to be some ghosts in there, but there's got to be something like there's a heavy hard hitter right off the front, because that is what immediately sunk for the back of the throat. That's where normally the primo tali seems to be, for me at least, pretty pronounced up front, but not quite as violent, and then it starts to build. This has a much more violent initial punch, and I love that. Mouth-wise, completely subsided by now. Feel a little bit in the back of the throat. Starting to get a little bit of a warm chest, but nothing too crazy. I can definitely just tell that the burn has now kind of gravitated towards the throat / chest, and all in all, phenomenal stuff there. So versatility wise, I could see myself using this on burger sandwiches, pizzas, and of course the stuff that it's geared towards, anything Mexican dish. You're going to be able to really slather this up with some tacos, with some quesadillas, some enchiladas. The world is endless whenever it comes to that. The only thing I would not gear this towards, and it is not built for that, is going to be dessert. But absolutely amazing stuff here, Wonka. You knocked this one out of the park. The birria sauce is phenomenal. So once again, close up with what's going on here. Love the label. Love what you're doing. And of course, thank you so much for sharing this amazing sauce with me. But let's do this. Let's go ahead and switch on over and start discussing how you can maximize and on a budget be able to really feed your plants and maximize your overall growth. All right, so let's talk about it. Now, if you caught last week's episode on Thursday, we were talking about how you can do budget gardening and really be able to make it still make sense for you, whether you're starting out with a small grow or you're really trying to scale up and really do things on a larger scale. But, ultimately, as you increase your grow, or even as you get started, with every, plant added, with every square foot that you continue to expand out, that tends to just ratchet up your overall budget. So, the topic always comes up. How can we do this? How can I make sure that this is effective and it's not going to break the bank? And also, make it to where it's something that is ready to go, not that big of a problem ultimately. Well, don't worry. Tonight we're going to talk on two different methods. Both of these are very simplistic, very minimal as far as cost, and likely you already have these materials laying around, or you have easy access to be able to implement some of these methods. So up first, we're going to talk about Jadam. This is a Korean method that is, very well tested, and it has been absolutely amazing. You may know it as JLF, which is Jadam Liquid Fertilizer. And so ultimately, whether you have heard of this or not, tonight we are going to just, touch on a very high level of what this is, how you can do this, and really break it down in a much more digestible manner. So oftentimes, individuals will go out and they'll either get an audiobook or a hard copy or something to really try to educate themselves on what different methods are out there and how it could benefit them. And, your common person coming into this field isn't going to know the scientific terms behind things. And so today we're just going to leave a lot of the scientific terms to the side. That'll be for a much more in-depth conversation that will be planned later. And let's just hit on the fundamentals. What can you do? How can you use it? And what are you going to maximize from this? So what ultimate items are you going to need to have the Jadam method work? And what does a timeline really look like? So method, ultimately what you will need is a sealable container. Most common use is, whether you have a home or you are in an apartment, you can still use this method and actually benefit from it. So if you're at a home and you got a small garden, or you are in an apartment and you are trying to be able to have a balcony garden going on, you can really ultimately use this in a 5-gallon food bucket. Make sure you get one that has a lid, because you're going to want this thing to be sealed up to keep out any kind of flies or anything of that nature. Plus, this method thrives off of and only works off of the idea of the absence of oxygen. So with that being said, that is what you are going to be looking at container-wise. Where can you source these? Now you can buy brand new ones from, say, your local hardware stores, or you can head on down to, if you have a Costco or a Sam's Club or something of that nature near you, or a large retail store that brings in food by the bucket, whether that be icing or what have you from the local bakery. You want to find a food safe bucket with a lid. Oftentimes, those type of stores will get them. They will have that product in there that they were going to use, and they'll just chunk them. So if you go to the meat market or the bakery and you ask them for food safe 5-gallon buckets, if they have any, they'll often either give them to you or sell them to you for pretty cheap. So check one, that's the item that you would need to get to first start. Then from there, next item, very easy to get by, water. So ideally, the best form of you being able to do this is to utilize rainwater. If you can't utilize rainwater, then, working with what you have is still going to be fine. Now, with the JLF, what you're really going to want to do is, as you're mixing up your Jadam, you're going to put in your plant matter, and then about 50% of that is going to be chlorine-free water. Best sources are going to be rainwater, and really, if you're able to get that and maximize that, that's ideal. But if not, chlorine-free water is going to be very crucial for this overall process. The best part about this is, unlike compost, where compost, as the gases go out, you also lose some of those natural nutrients that are also being expressed out through a gas. You're able to trap that in there and really keep that locked in that liquid. The other good thing is, with the process of Jadam and JLF, as it's run its course, it starts to become almost a neutral feed, if you will. It's not too acidic, it's not too alkaline. You're really left with a nice remnants of a very crucial feed, and you can really start to fine tune and hone it in for your exact needs. The overall effectiveness and being able to keep the microbes alive is going to be the main thing. So making sure that you have a good water source is ideal. And from there, you have many different ways that we can do, the Jadam method. So you can create multiple pots for different types of, seasons of your peppers going through. You got your growth season, then you got your fruiting, and so on. So you can separate it out that way, or you can do it all in one batch. If it was me, I end up working out to where I take a lot of clippings of whether that be weeds or grass or what have you, and that goes in one tub, and then fruit from the plant from the prior year, or if you have pests or anything, the birds, squirrels, anything that kind of get to your crop ahead of time, and otherwise you would just throw it in compost. Take that, put it in a whole separate bucket. Now, here's where things get fun. You're going to be making a concentrate with this. Now, this concentrate is going to take about, you'll start to see some action 1 week in. Now, you're really going to want to try to hold off for at least 3 months. The great thing about this method is it just only continues to get stronger and stronger as time progresses. This is definitely going to be one that you want to dilute down. So if you're sitting there going, well, hey, 5-gallon bucket's not going to last me that long. Well, if you're doing it right, you're able to really stretch that and keep it going. Now, if you have a rather large grow, you're not going to want to stick with a 5-gallon bucket. You're going to want to look for a food safe, big old tub, trash can that is, not going to leach out, or a giant, 55-gallon drum that you can fill up and do the same method. As long as you have a sealing lid, that's the main thing. So, with that being said, as you get ready to prep the ground, whether you're growing in ground or you are going to set up a raised bed, but you want to prep the ground initially so that it's nice and even, take all those clippings, take all that you've just stripped away to make room for your garden, and put that in with your first bucket. Now, from there, the next thing you will need is going to be leaf mold. So you can either go, if you have a local park or some kind of nature that's undisturbed, where trees are out there, leaves are falling. You're going to want to go out there, grab a bag, grab a bucket, something that you can store this with. You're going to want to go out there and you just slightly move back some of those top leaves. And if you start to see those leaves that are breaking down below there, you're going to want to grab some of that soil, some of that leaf mold that's right there. And then you're going to take that and you're going to put it in your container, and you're going to be bringing that back with you. But before you leave, make sure you push those top leaves back over that spot where you grab some. That way that you don't kill the microbes that are there, already doing their great thing. The whole reason why you're even there in the first place, to collect that. So as you get into the collecting of the leaf mold, if you don't have that avenue available for you, or you're concerned that maybe you're not grabbing the right thing, there are companies that are out there that do sell leaf mold. There's a place in Houston that does pretty well, as for being known for that. But the main thing is, if you're able to find it locally to you, and if you are able to grab it from nature, from a park or something that you can find, that avenue of leaves breaking down, basically undisturbed land is going to be the kind of ideal situation for you. That is going to be the best, because if it's local to you, it's also going to be geared towards your climate, geared towards your needs for your plants as well, and really be able to benefit from that. But with that, your clippings and the water, you're going to want to put all that in the same bucket. And then, roughly, there's not really, there's some people that dial this in, they get pretty fine-tuned with it. But if you're just starting out, trial and error is going to be your best friend on this one, because ultimately you can pack it down with as much, weeds, clippings, anything that you want within there. So like if you're cutting down last year's crop and, you had these buckets ready to go, you could have actually started priming these buckets ahead of time, and it could have actually gone all winter to be able to be ready as you're getting plants ready to go in the ground and you're prepping the soil. You can really use this as its concentrate to be able to feed those microbes and really to prep the soil. Now, with this concentrate, to kind of explain a little bit more about this concentrate, you are going to want to dilute it. Now, if you don't have any plants in the ground, you can use the concentrate. It's going to be, very potent. But if there are plants there that you care about, the potency of it all might actually end up causing burn to the plants because of how high in nitrogen that concentrate would and could be without dilution. So, to give an example, commonly people look for a 10 to 50% dilution ratio, depending on. So as you can imagine, that 5-gallon bucket is going to end up actually doing pretty good for you. And the longer that it runs, the more concentrated it gets. As you're starting to mix this up, you've got this going. Let's say, you drop your leaf mold, you drop your clippings on top of that. You really press it down and start to add that water. What you're going to start to see is you're going to want to mix it up and kind of tamper it down. But for that first week, you want the container to remain sealed. After that first week is done, you can pop the top on it, take a look. You're going to want to kind of mash it down, because as with any kind of fermentation process, that's what this is undergoing, is a fermentation. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to want to keep those, clippings, those resources down below, under, exposed by the water. It's going to start doing its breaking itself down. It's going to start turning into almost a dark, very pungent liquid. So, this is not one that you're going to want to set up inside of a garage or a concealed area. It is going to be absolutely very, very potent in its aroma and in its smell. So definitely be aware of that. Keep it outside. Keep it away from spilling on your clothes. If you are interacting with this, make sure that you have, some gloves or something that you can, be able to not have it get onto your body. Otherwise, you'll be scrubbing, and hopefully you don't have that lovely smell with you. But as this continues to break down, you start to really feed those microbes based on what is in there, which then starts to give back to your plants what they're lacking. This also is extremely beneficial, like I said, if you're able to utilize your plants throughout the season with this method, or if as you're wrapping up the season, you go ahead to start the next year's batch, taking the old plants then start to break down to the nutrients to know what the soil is lacking and needing. Common issue is, people hear JLF, and so they see the liquid fertilizer aspect, and their mind goes, oh, I can go to the store. I can just go buy these things. Fertilizer, right? Well, no. A lot of the stuff that you get from the stores, the big box stores in particular, a lot of the synthetics, while they're great at giving an instant feed and trying to course correct for the plant for a short period of time, what it ends up causing is real bad issues to the soil health and what you have going on. So longevity-wise, it is more harmful than beneficial, as to where with JLF, it is not that way. You are feeding the plant, you are feeding the soil, those microbes are thriving, they're multiplying, and it turns into a better breeding ground for your plants to live and to be able to share nutrients across one another. So that is a very brief overview of JLF and what can be done. Now, with we talked about with the clippings and really more the greens side of things, if you split it out into a flowering pot, into a one that has the fruits from the plants that you're using, so if peppers in general or eggplants or whatever you're throwing into the bucket, whether that be tomatoes, all these things, that will break down, and over time that will be a great ratio for whenever your plant is in flowering mode and really taking off. Now, you can mix both of these. They can be the one same container, and you can maximize what you have going on. But the idea there is going to be really keeping a close eye on your ratios between what you have from a fruiting standpoint and versus just the straight clippings, whether that be weeds, the grass clippings, chopped up plants, etc. So you can still incorporate this throughout your, season as you're going. So let's say that you are growing and all of a sudden you have a plant that just doesn't seem to be thriving. You're going to go ahead and cull it. It's going to be, deselected from proceeding forward. Take that plant, dust off, all the loose debris from the roots. Take that plant, you can either chop it up. Ideally, it'll break down faster if it is in smaller pieces. But, get it to a point where it can fit in the bucket, chopped up, and then start to add to it and start that process then. In 1 week, you check on it. You can continue to add to this as it goes. Ideally, you want to remove any kind of solid sediments before you extract out the concentrate from this container, but that doesn't mean that you absolutely have to. If you were to continue to add to it, what you would need to do is, as you were extracting, you want to make sure that you have a means to be able to get a, just liquid scoop from it. So whether you want to run it through a filter before it goes into your watering can, that's one method. Or if you just get a ladle, push down the sediment, grab a scoop, and you're just going to be top dressing the soil. That's another way to go about it. But remember to, start out low, heavy dilutions to start, and slowly increasing the amount to find out where your threshold is for your plants to thrive and really be able to take off from this without getting burned, without having any kind of issues that may arise from just dumping straight concentrate on the plants. Staying in the realm of, readily available objects and items that are probably either on your property or you can have pretty easy access to is the realm of biochar. So with biochar, you're going to be, instead of with Jadam utilizing the plants and really the clippings and all these things, you have trees, and oftentimes trees is where you're going to be getting your leaf mold and so on and so forth because of the leaf droppage and it really breaking down and starting to create a compost. Another great avenue for utilizing some of these trees, whether you have a tree that has been downed or you got a rotting limb, being able to chop that up, clean that down, clean that up, and take that wood and really utilize it for biochar, which is the process of essentially burning the wood to a point that the oxygen is so depleted from it that it ends up becoming almost like a charcoal, if you will. Now, you can utilize that same biochar and actually soak it in the Jadam and let that Jadam really get inside that biochar very nicely, break it up, and sprinkle that into your soil as well. That is another great way to go about it, as well as you can also use the biochar itself as a top dressing. Break it down. Once it is turned into completely burnt, nice chunk. Here, let me get a picture of this pulled up as well. Once you have that nice broken down chunk, you can actually, pulverize it to where it is almost into a granular of biochar here. So as you can see, it looks a lot like char. Your ash. What you're going to see, the biochar itself is going to break down. This is kind of biochar after it's been mixed into soils as an amendment. I'm trying to find a good one of what some of these logs can kind of look like as they break down. We're talking now, you're dual purposing what you have going on in your grow, on your property, really being able to shine and let that, Mother Nature take hold. Ultimately, everything you need for your grow is here on Earth, ready to go for you at any moment's notice. It's a matter of knowing how to use it and when to use it that really matters and really will make the difference. Because, man-made stuff is great for what it is, not the end-all be-all. And as you have seen with a lot of major crop growth, that's also causing a lot of the problems that we have. So to be able to really utilize what is there, you're cutting your costs, you're cutting down on, what you're having to do in order to really have that maximize for you, your yields, your production, the health of your plants, and you're making it into a sustainable way forward. If you're one that struggles with, really damaged soil, you always feel like your soil just keeps compacting. You're never really able to handle the drainage or or you're constantly faced with erosion issues. Utilizing biochar can really help, alleviate a lot of that compaction, the drainage. It's also going to be able to help with nutrient uptake. And these methods with biochar, they can last quite some time, to benefit the soil, and ultimately you're helping build things up. Much like with Jadam, you're ultimately being able to feed and help with nutrient uptake, and pairing that with biochar allows for that to be a sustaining, long-lasting nutrient source for your plants as a whole. Really start to see the benefits from a prolonged situation as opposed to with the synthetics where you're getting that quick hit. Things may look great for the short period of time, but 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road, you'll start to see the overall damage that you have started to cause to your soil, to what you have going on. Water retention, depending on where you are, is going to be very crucial. Like for me here in Texas, one issue that we have is we have very, hard clay soil here, and the water retention is not the greatest. It ends up not having that great of flow. So, if it's a heavy rain, you start to get erosion. It doesn't really get down too far into the soil. So the plants struggle, which will then cause them to have shallow, widespread roots instead of going down deep and really hunkering in. With that being said, that also, you know, causes more issues whenever you're talking with wind coming through, whipping things around. If you don't have those deep roots in those plants, it's just going to completely strip it off the side because it's going to be so shallow, so widespread that it's just going to tip right over and cause tons of problems for you. Another great thing about biochar is it's able to really help purify, cut back, if you will, on polluted soils. So if you have been running synthetics for quite some time, you're having issues, being able to work that carbon back into the earth and let that really filter out a lot of those, problems that you're facing in your soil, and have this to really build up your both the drainage as well as the water retention. This is going to be an ideal situation for you. And, something to keep in mind as well with biochar is you're going to be faced with potentially having that biochar also raise the pH level of your soil. So if your soil is naturally very acidic and you're trying to get it up to be not quite as acidic as what you currently have, biochar is a great way to be able to balance that out and really help those plants thrive. Now, obviously, you don't want it to be too alkaline. You don't want it to be too acidic. You kind of want a nice happy median. So being able to regulate that in is going to be ideal, and working that with the Jadam, having those two kind of come together, you get much more of a neutral balance to it all. Obviously, if you offset one versus the other, you'll start to have it be either more alkaline or more acidic from a overall feed standpoint and what it's going to be putting into your soil. With that being said, I would also recommend that if you're going to incorporate just biochar, to be careful on how you implement it and how much you use, because it can start to cause a micronutrient imbalance within your soil because of the alkalinity that is getting pumped into it. So to make sure that you're doing it in moderation and also to be checking your soil is going to be the most key and ideal situation. But these are just two amazing methods that you can use, natural resources that are around you at your fingertips that you otherwise wouldn't be, even thinking of using to benefit your plants and really maximize those. And so if you're pairing these together and some other methods that we will discuss in a future episode, this will all start to, work together, pair together very well. Very minimal time required to do both of these methods. I mean, one with Jadam is almost a set it and forget it type of method. You're only coming out there to check on it periodically, mash down the solids and kind of give it a good stir, and then back to capping it off. Some other issues that you could arise with Jadam is if it doesn't fully seal, what you might start to see is you might start to notice that there's maggots or something in there. It's not going to say that that is going to harm your plants or be in any kind of problem any which way. The main thing you would want to do there is obviously strain out or make a way to scoop out those maggots, the solids, and really get them gone, get them out of there. Before you utilize that. That would be the only way to really go about that, but it's not going to hurt the overall feed as a whole. So don't worry about that, but making sure that that lid is nice and secure will also help the production of the Jadam as it goes and really be able to maximize. Also, as a point of concern for biochar, if you are using this and you have, let's say, a very sandy soil and not really faced with a lot of the clay or hard compactions, this can actually be counterproductive if you do live in a climate that has a lot more sandy soils. So if you have sandy soil, probably not the amendment for you. I would stick with the Jadam and then look into some other natural amendments to really help refine and hone in your grow. Now, also to once again touch on some other potential drawbacks that you will face. A few reasons why this isn't a wide scale used product is because, well, you have to chop down trees, you have to have wood in order to make biochar, and you don't want to completely deforest, the whole entire planet to be able to make this, obviously, as well as, using too much can be a bad thing. But if you're just doing this periodically, using some fallen tree limbs or, some wood that you have to be able to really create this, make it into a small focused area. Testing your soil is going to be key here because you do not want to over alkaline your soil. So a simple soil test will help out well. There are local nurseries and so on around you. I'm sure that you would be able to do soil sample if you're really trying to find out exactly what your garden is lacking, just dialing that in to a certain point, and you can kind of just scale back from the biochar. You don't really need to continuously incorporate it. Once again, it is all utilizing resources that are around you and putting them to work. Another thing to keep in mind is if you are allergic to specific trees and you're using that tree to create biochar, as it burns is going to probably cause an irritant towards you. So being cautious of, what type of wood you're using if you are allergic is going to be extremely important, as well as just a natural ash kind of kicking up as this burns is going to potentially cause some form of just natural irritation. So being cautious of how you're doing this, when you're doing this, is going to be extremely crucial. So while some methods may use wood, you can also still use bamboo, which is also known for taking over certain areas. So if you're chopping down some bamboo, you're getting ready to get rid of it, you can also utilize that instead of, say, a tree or tree limb. And in the really main focal point is it's not ash, it's not just charcoal, and it's not just burnt wood. It is the way that the burning process emits all the gases, all the oxygen out of there, and allows for the nutrients to go into the poorest parts of this. It is very similar to, I guess, in most common terms, it would be similar to a charcoal or an ash, but it is not quite that. But it allows for the nutrients to latch in and take hold and really be able to sustain and feed and help the soil, which ultimately ends up helping the plants have a great use of the nutrients and the overall crop yield. So right about now, you're probably thinking, why would I use Jadam over, say, just going to the store and grabbing some compost tea? Well, you could easily do that. And, compost tea is great for what it is. But, with Jadam, you're able to utilize items that you either already have on hand, whether that be food scraps or, just plant clippings as a whole, weeds, you name it, grass clippings, all these things can kind of go in there, which ultimately are already items that you have in your possession, and cutting down on what you have to actually spend. I do think that compost teas as a product itself are doing a great job at what they offer, but this is an avenue for you to be able to utilize and really take advantage of these other things that you have. And definitely if you are sitting there, you're in a apartment and you're trying to do your balcony grow, you're also having, food waste of byproducts from what you've either cut up to cook that you're not going to use, and you can just toss them in that container and now they have a purpose and you can break them down. You're going to be feeding with the Jadam. The biochar is a temporary use. You're going to incorporate it when it's needed, but it's not going to be that frequent that you're going to be putting this into action. To be able to do this on a larger scale without all the guesswork, a soil sample is going to be crucial in making sure you can fine-tune your Jadam exactly how you are needing it to be able to feed your crops, your soil and everything that you have going on. Also, if you are wanting to test the strength and potency of your Jadam, you can check out the Blue Lab truncheon, and that stick allows you to be able to plunge it down into your Jadam and really see the overall concentrate strength and know exactly how you can start to refine and hone in your exact dilution ratios. As with always, if you are trying to grow peppers, it is best to utilize that pepper mass inside of the Jadam mixture. So if you are end of season, getting ready to go, it is best to take those pepper plants, chop them up, drop them in the barrel, and go with it from there. You can also incorporate in other amendments as well. So if you're wanting to mix in some manures, you can do that. If you're wanting to mix in some other different amendments, natural organic amendments, you can go ahead and drop it into that same feed as you're getting ready to go. The manures you can keep into the Jadam mix for that actual feeding concentrate. The other amendments I would top into your overall concentrate as you're getting ready to dilute it, obviously staying in mind with the overall dilution ratio and making sure that those amendments are also getting the proper ratio in that mixture. The idea is to ultimately be able to utilize these free materials that you have at your ready all the time to be able to incorporate in. If you want to throw the biochar into your Jadam as you're going, some of that ash aspect, you can really break that down into it as well. This is simply just a quick understanding and grasp of being able to get started in these subjects and to gain an understanding of how they can be used, what potential drawbacks you might face, and how you can start to fine-tune them. With trial and error, you can start implementing these now, really finding out budget-friendly ideas of ways that you can benefit what you have going on to maximize your water retention, maximize your flow, your aeration, and really be able to hold on to those nutrients, get those nutrients to not only feed the soil, but feed the plants, which then in turn makes it to where you're able to benefit from it in the long run instead of just that short, quick hit that ends up stripping everything out. Just because growing can cost a lot doesn't mean that it has to. There are plenty natural alternatives out there that you can utilize resources that you already have and incorporate it in your grow. If tonight's episode was something that you enjoyed, I recommend checking out Jadam Organic Farming for more in-depth details on that. And if you would like to learn more about this, please let me know in the comments down below. Or if there's a specific type of method that you would like to learn more about. Definitely start to cater some of these episodes towards specific topics to be able to bring in more subject matter experts on these areas. Don't forget, new episodes drop every Tuesday and Thursday night, 8 p.m. Central. Continue to share this out with other like-minded chili heads. Could not do this without y'all. Thank you so much, Swear Nation, for making this show what it is. Want to go ahead and give a quick shout out to our sponsors, podvision.io. If you are looking to grow your brand, start your brand, you hit a bump in the road, you're trying to figure things out, highly recommend checking out podvision.io for all your needs, as well as webdx.one. If you have an out-of-date website, you need some updates, it just doesn't fit who you are and what you're trying to share with everyone else, highly recommend checking out webdx.one, as well as they're able to help with your small or medium-sized business with automations so that you can focus on what you do best. I'm Brandon Swear, and from everything from the world of hot, this has been The Swear Word.